Commander Zektar of the Hegemony 4th Fleet stared at the holographic display floating before him. The blue light cast strange shadows across his scaled face as he studied the data that had just arrived from the outer rim. His three eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion among his people. "This cannot be correct," he hissed, his forked tongue tasting the recycled air of the command bridge. "Run the scan again." The bridge crew of the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion worked frantically at their stations. Each alien wore the distinctive black uniform of the Hegemony, the last great empire that ruled over half the galaxy. For 300 years, they had expanded without resistance, crushing every civilization that dared oppose them. Lieutenant Vexta, a spider-like creature with 8 delicate arms, manipulated her controls with practiced precision. "Sir, the readings are confirmed. Long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures from the Sol system. The patterns match no known hegemony technology." Zektar's tail lashed behind him, striking the metal floor with a sharp crack. The Sol system was supposed to be dead. According to all historical records, the humans had been extinct for over 2 centuries. The hegemony had encountered their abandoned colonies and dead worlds during their expansion, but never a living human. "Perhaps it is some other species that moved into the system after the humans died," suggested Science Officer Mordin, his tentacles writhing nervously. "The system has good planets. Someone might have colonized it." But Zektar felt a chill run down his spine. He had studied the old files about humanity during his academy days. They had been labeled as a moderate threat before their sudden disappearance. Their technology was primitive compared to modern hegemony standards, but they had shown unusual adaptability and aggression. "Send a probe," Zektar commanded. "I want detailed scans of every planet, every moon, every asteroid in that system. And send word to High Command. They need to know about this." The probe launched from the belly of the dreadnought, its sleek form disappearing into the dark void between stars. It would take 3 weeks to reach the Sol system, and another week for the data to return. Zektar settled into wait, but something deep in his gut told him that this discovery would change everything. Meanwhile, billions of light-years away in the core worlds of the hegemony, Emperor Thaxlon received the transmission with mild interest. He sat upon his throne of crystallized starlight, his massive form dwarfing even his largest guards. The Emperor had ruled for 60 years, expanding the hegemony's territory to unprecedented size. "Humans," he rumbled, his voice echoing through the vast throne room. "I remember reading about them. Small, weak creatures. If any survived, they pose no threat to us." His chief advisor, a tall being made of living metal named Korseth, bowed deeply. "Shall we prepare a conquest fleet, Your Majesty? It would be a simple matter to claim their system." Emperor Thaxlon waved a dismissive hand. "No need for a full fleet. Send a single battle group. If there are indeed humans still alive, we shall add them to our empire. It will be good practice for our newer commanders." 3 weeks later, the probe reached the edge of the Sol system. What it found defied all expectations. The outer planets bristled with defensive installations unlike anything in hegemony records. Massive space stations orbited Jupiter, their surfaces covered with weapons that hummed with unknown energy. The asteroid belt had been converted into a fortress network, with countless mining operations and military outposts connected by streams of automated cargo ships. But it was Earth that truly shocked the probe's sensors. The blue planet was surrounded by multiple rings of defensive platforms. Ships moved in organized patterns around the planet, their design sleek and deadly. These vessels were nothing like the primitive human ships described in the old files. The probe tried to move closer for detailed scans, but it was detected almost immediately. Warning signals flooded its systems as targeting sensors locked onto it from a dozen different directions. Before it could transmit its findings, a beam of pure energy struck it, reducing the probe to expanding gas and metal fragments. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Zektar stared at the final transmission from the probe. The image was unclear and filled with static, but he could see enough to know that the humans were not only alive, but had built something incredible in their home system. "How is this possible?" whispered Lieutenant Vexta. "The historical records say they were a primitive species. These installations, they're using technology we don't even recognize." Zektar studied the data more carefully. The energy readings from the human ships were off the charts. Their defensive platforms showed power signatures that rivaled hegemony dreadnoughts. Most disturbing of all, the probe had detected thousands of ships in the system, far more than any single species should be able to maintain. "Send word to Emperor Thaxlon," Zektar commanded. "Tell him we need more than a battle group. Much more." But, even as he gave the order, Zektar couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The humans had been preparing for something, and, whatever it was, the hegemony had just walked into their trap. On Earth, in a command center buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Sarachan watched the destruction of the alien probe with grim satisfaction. She was a small woman by human standards, but her eyes held the weight of centuries. Thanks to advanced medical technology, she had lived long enough to see humanity's greatest transformation. "So they finally found us," she said quietly. "After all these years of hiding and preparing." General Marcus Webb, standing beside her, nodded grimly. He was even older than Chen, having fought in humanity's last great war before their supposed extinction. "The question is, are we ready for what's coming?" Admiral Chen looked at the displays showing Earth's defenses. Humanity had spent 200 years building in secret, using technology they had discovered in the ruins of an ancient civilization. They had learned from their past mistakes, when they had been too scattered and weak to resist alien conquest. "We're as ready as we'll ever be," she said. "Signal all fleets. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity isn't just alive, we're stronger than we've ever been." The signal went out across the Sol system, reaching not just the ships orbiting Earth, but hidden fleets throughout human space. Humanity had been busy during their supposed extinction, expanding in secret to dozens of star systems. They had built an empire of their own, one designed for a single purpose: to ensure that no alien force would ever threaten human survival again. The hegemony thought they were dealing with a single system of primitive survivors. They were about to discover that they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could possibly imagine. In the depths of space, automated human factories began producing new ships at an accelerated rate. Weapons that had been held in reserve for centuries powered up for the first time. And, across human space, billions of people prepared for a war that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The last empire that dared challenge the galaxy was about to learn why humanity had really disappeared, and why they had chosen this moment to return. Emperor Thaxlon stood in his war room, studying the massive holographic map of the galaxy. Red markers showed hegemony territory, covering nearly 60% of known space. A single blue dot marked the Sol system, looking tiny and insignificant among the vast red expanse. "Your Majesty," Admiral Kresta reported, her insectoid features tight with concern. "Commander Zektar requests permission to withdraw his fleet to a safe distance. He believes the humans may pose a greater threat than initially assessed." The Emperor's laugh was like grinding stone. "Withdraw? From a single system? I think our commanders have grown soft with too many easy victories." He turned to face his assembled war council. "Send the 7th and 9th battle groups to join Zektar's 4th fleet. 3 full battle groups should be more than sufficient to deal with whatever primitive defenses the humans have managed to build." General Mortak, the Emperor's military advisor, shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should wait for more intelligence, Your Majesty. The probe's final transmission showed technology signatures that don't match our records of human capabilities." "Are you questioning my judgment?" Emperor Thaxlon's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Of course not, Your Majesty. I simply suggest caution. Caution is for the weak. We have conquered 200 species without losing a single major engagement. What makes these humans so special?" The Emperor waved his hand dismissively. "Send the fleets. And make sure they broadcast the battle on all frequencies. I want every world in the galaxy to see what happens to those who think they can hide from the hegemony." 3 days later, the largest hegemony fleet ever assembled in a single location dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 300 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a planet, moved in perfect formation toward the inner system. The combined firepower of the fleet could have cracked worlds in half. Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, now serving as the flagship for the combined fleet. Despite his earlier concerns, seeing the massive armada around him filled him with confidence. No force in the galaxy could stand against this much concentrated power. Human ships detected on long-range sensors, reported Lieutenant Vexta. I count approximately 50 vessels moving to intercept us. Zektar blinked his 3 eyes in surprise. 50 ships? Against 300? He almost laughed. These humans must be even more primitive than we thought. They're committing suicide. The human ships were indeed approaching, but something about their movement patterns made Zektar pause. They moved with perfect precision, maintaining formations that seemed to flow like living things. More disturbing, his sensors couldn't get clear readings on their ship designs or power signatures. "Admiral," came a transmission from the lead human vessel. The voice was calm, almost friendly. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the UEF Defiance. You are entering human space without permission. Please reverse course immediately." The bridge crew of the Eternal Dominion burst into laughter. The idea that 50 ships could threaten their massive fleet was absurd. Even Admiral Cresta, normally serious, allowed herself a small smile. "Human vessel," Zektar replied, "you are addressing the 4th, 7th, and 9th battle groups of the Hegemony fleet. You will surrender immediately, or we will destroy you and every living thing in this system." There was a pause before Captain Rodriguez responded. "I see. In that case, Admiral, you leave us no choice. All human ships, you are weapons free. Show them what we've learned." What happened next would be discussed in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The human ships suddenly scattered, moving at speeds that shouldn't have been possible for vessels of their size. Zektar watched in amazement as they accelerated to nearly half the speed of light in mere seconds, their engines producing energy signatures that made no sense. "Impossible," whispered Science Officer Mordin. "Those acceleration rates would crush any living crew." The first human ship, the Defiance, opened fire on the Hegemony's leading dreadnought. Instead of the energy beams or plasma bolts that the Hegemony expected, the human weapons fired something entirely different. Streams of what looked like liquid silver struck the massive alien warship. The dreadnought's shields, rated to withstand planet-killing weapons, collapsed instantly. The silver streams continued through the hull as if it were made of paper, emerging from the other side in expanding clouds of metallic vapor. Within seconds, the entire ship was simply gone, converted into its component atoms. What in the name of the void was that? Zektar shouted. More human ships opened fire. Each shot from their weapons erased Hegemony vessels completely, leaving nothing but expanding gas clouds where mighty warships had been moments before. The aliens' return fire struck the human ships, but their shields absorbed the attacks without any visible effect. "Sir!" Lieutenant Vexta called out, her 8 arms working frantically at her controls. "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. There are more ships coming out of hiding." Zektar's blood turned to ice as his sensors revealed the truth. Hidden behind asteroids, cloaked near planets, and emerging from what appeared to be empty space, thousands of human ships were revealing themselves. The Sol system wasn't defended by 50 vessels, it was defended by an entire fleet that dwarfed even the Hegemony armada. But these weren't just more ships. As Zektar watched in growing horror, he realized that many of the new vessels were larger than anything in the Hegemony fleet. Some were the size of small moons, bristling with weapons that hummed with deadly energy. "How?" he whispered. "How did they hide so many ships?" His question was answered when one of the massive human vessels fired a single shot at an asteroid field. The beam struck what appeared to be empty space, and, suddenly, a Hegemony stealth ship materialized, completely disabled. The humans had sensors that could penetrate their best cloaking technology. Admiral Cresta's voice crackled over the communication system from her flagship. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. We need to regroup and reassess." But the human ships weren't going to let them escape so easily. Moving with impossible speed and coordination, they surrounded the Hegemony fleet in a matter of minutes. What had started as an invasion had become a trap. "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez's voice came again, still calm and professional. Your fleet is now surrounded. We have no desire to destroy you unnecessarily. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Zektar looked at his tactical display. Red dots representing hegemony ships were scattered across the screen, while blue dots representing human vessels surrounded them in perfect formations. The numbers weren't even close. For every hegemony ship, there were at least 10 human vessels. This is impossible, Admiral Cresta transmitted. No single species can maintain this many ships. Where did you get this technology? Captain Rodriguez's reply came with what sounded like amusement. We learned from our mistakes, Admiral. The last time aliens invaded our space, we were scattered and unprepared. We swore that would never happen again. What do you mean, last time? Zektar demanded. Check your historical records, the human captain replied. About 300 years ago, your expansion fleets encountered human colonies. You destroyed 17 of our worlds and enslaved millions of our people. We haven't forgotten. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion fell silent. Zektar remembered reading about those early encounters in the Academy. The humans had put up fierce resistance, but their technology had been no match for hegemony weapons. The campaign had been listed as a complete victory. But the records say all humans were eliminated, Science Officer Morden said quietly. The records are wrong, Captain Rodriguez replied. We let you think you had one. We retreated to our home system and spent the next 3 centuries preparing for your return. We knew you would come eventually. Empires like yours always do. Admiral Cresta's voice was tight with anger. You're telling us this was all planned? You deliberately let us think you were extinct? It was the only way, the human captain confirmed. We needed time to advance our technology, to build our fleets, and to learn everything we could about your empire. We've been watching you for centuries, studying your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. Zektar felt a chill of understanding. You've been spying on us. For 300 years. Among other things. We've also been preparing for this day. The day when your empire would finally overreach itself and attack someone capable of fighting back. On his tactical display, Zektar could see more human ships arriving every minute. Some were emerging from hyperspace, while others seemed to be coming from hidden bases throughout the system. The human fleet was growing larger by the hour. How many ships do you have? He asked, dreading the answer. In this system? About 15,000 combat vessels. Throughout human space? That's classified. 15,000 ships. The entire hegemony fleet numbered less than 10,000 vessels spread across half the galaxy. Somehow, in secret, the humans had built a force that outnumbered the greatest military in galactic history. This is your final warning, Captain Rodriguez announced. Surrender now, or we will be forced to destroy your fleet. You have 10 minutes to decide. Zektar looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? They were outnumbered 50-1 by ships that had already proven their weapons could destroy hegemony vessels with single shots. Sir, Lieutenant Vexta whispered, what are your orders? Zektar closed his 3 eyes and thought about his family back on the homeworld. He thought about the billions of hegemony citizens who had never imagined that their mighty empire could be threatened. Most of all, he thought about the arrogance that had brought them to this moment. The humans had spent 3 centuries planning for this day. They had built an entire civilization around the single goal of ensuring their survival against alien threats. And the hegemony had walked right into their trap. Open a channel to all ships, Zektar said quietly. This is Commander Zektar to all hegemony vessels. Lower your shields and power down your weapons. We surrender. The words tasted like poison in his mouth, but he knew they were the only chance his crews had of surviving. As the great ships of the hegemony fleet powered down one by one, Zektar wondered if this was how every empire felt in its final moments, surprised, outmatched, and completely unprepared for their own downfall. The Empire falls. Emperor Thaxlon sat in stunned silence as the reports poured in from across the galaxy. The massive holographic display in his throne room now showed a very different picture than it had just days before. The blue markers representing human forces were spreading across the map like a plague, appearing in system after system that had been solidly under hegemony control for centuries. "Your Majesty," General Mortak announced, his voice shaking, "we've lost contact with the Outer Rim Command. The humans have taken control of 47 star systems in the last 72 hours. The Emperor's massive hands gripped the arms of his throne so tightly that the crystallized starlight began to crack. "How is this possible? How are they moving so quickly?" Admiral Kresta, who had managed to escape the Sol system in a damaged ship, stepped forward. Her insectoid features were scarred from her encounter with human weapons, and her voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. "Your Majesty, they were already there. The humans have been secretly colonizing systems throughout the galaxy for centuries. They weren't just preparing in Sol, they've built an entire shadow empire right under our noses." Chief Advisor Korseth, his metallic form dim with shock, added his own grim report. "Our intelligence networks are reporting the same thing from every sector. Human fleets are emerging from hidden bases, revealing colonies we never knew existed. They've been living among us, watching us, learning everything about our empire while we thought they were extinct." Emperor Thaxlon stood up slowly, his massive form casting shadows across the room. "Show me the current tactical situation." The holographic display zoomed out to show the entire galaxy. What the Emperor saw made his blood turn cold. Blue markers now covered nearly a quarter of the map, and they were spreading rapidly. But, worse than the territory they controlled was the pattern of their advance. "They're not just taking random systems," he realized aloud. "They're targeting our supply lines, our communication hubs, our strategic strongholds. This isn't a random expansion, it's a coordinated military campaign." General Mortak nodded grimly. "Our analysts believe they've been planning this operation for decades, possibly centuries. Every move is calculated to cause maximum damage to our infrastructure while minimizing their own losses." "What about our response fleets?" "That's the problem, Your Majesty," Admiral Kresta replied. "Every time we send forces to retake a system, the humans seem to know exactly where we're going and what we're bringing. They ambush our fleets before they can reach their targets. It's as if they can predict our every move." The Emperor began pacing, his footsteps echoing through the vast throne room. "Do we know how many ships they have in total?" "Our best estimates suggest at least 50,000 combat vessels," General Mortak said quietly. "Possibly more. They're using manufacturing techniques we don't understand. Their shipyards can produce vessels at rates that should be impossible." 50,000 ships. The number was staggering. The hegemony had spent 3 centuries building their fleet, and they had fewer than 10,000 vessels. Somehow, the humans had built an armada 5 times larger while remaining completely hidden. "Your Majesty," a new voice interrupted. Communications Officer Veltar rushed into the throne room, clutching a data pad. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. The humans are requesting to speak with you directly." Emperor Thaxlon's eyes narrowed. "Put it through." The holographic display shimmered and resolved into the image of a human woman. She was elderly by human standards, with gray hair and lines around her eyes, but her gaze was sharp and determined. Behind her, the Emperor could see what appeared to be a command center filled with humans working at advanced computer systems. "Emperor Thaxlon," the woman said, her voice carrying clearly across the light years. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen, Supreme Commander of the United Earth Federation. I believe it's time we talked." The Emperor stared at this small, seemingly frail creature who had somehow orchestrated the collapse of his empire. "You are the one responsible for this uprising?" Admiral Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I prefer to think of it as justice delayed. Your empire has oppressed this galaxy for 3 centuries. You've enslaved entire species, destroyed countless worlds, and eliminated any civilization that dared to resist you. Today, that ends. You cannot destroy the hegemony," the Emperor snarled. "We rule over 10,000 star systems. Our military might is beyond anything a single species can challenge." "Your Majesty," Admiral Chen replied calmly, "we're not challenging your military might. We've already defeated it. At this moment, human forces control 30% of your former territory. Our fleets have destroyed or captured over 60% of your navy. Your empire is collapsing as we speak. The Emperor looked at his tactical display and realized she was right. The blue markers were spreading across the map even as they spoke. Entire sectors of the hegemony were falling to human forces without any effective resistance. How? He demanded. How did you accomplish this? Admiral Chan leaned back in her chair. 300 years of planning, Your Majesty. When your forces first attacked our colonies, we learned a valuable lesson: never again would humanity be caught unprepared. We retreated to our home system and began the greatest military buildup in galactic history. But we detected no signs of this expansion. Our scouts reported the Sol system as dead for 2 centuries. Because we wanted you to think that, Admiral Chen explained. We developed cloaking technology that made our ships and colonies invisible to your sensors. We built our infrastructure in places you would never look, inside asteroids, on the dark sides of moons, in deep space between star systems. We've been living in the shadows of your empire, watching and learning. General Mortak stepped forward. Even if you could hide your expansion, how did you advance your technology so quickly? Your species was primitive when we first encountered you. Admiral Chen's smile became predatory. We had excellent teachers. You see, the hegemony wasn't the first galactic empire. Throughout our exploration, we discovered the ruins of at least 6 previous civilizations that once ruled the stars. They all fell to younger, more aggressive species, just as you're falling to us now. The Emperor felt a chill run through his massive frame. You found ancient technology. We found something better than technology, we found wisdom. Each of those dead empires made the same mistakes you've made. They grew complacent, they underestimated their enemies, and they believed their power would last forever. We studied their failures and learned from them. What do you want? The Emperor asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Unconditional surrender, Admiral Chan replied without hesitation. The immediate cessation of all military operations. The release of every enslaved species in your territory. The dismantling of your war machine. And the trial of war criminals responsible for the atrocities committed during your expansion. The throne room fell silent. The very idea of the mighty hegemony surrendering to any force, let alone a species they had thought extinct, was unthinkable. But, looking at the tactical display, the Emperor could see that they had no choice. And, if I refuse? Admiral Chan's expression hardened. Then, we will continue our advance until every world in your empire is liberated. Your citizens will suffer for your stubbornness, and, ultimately, the result will be the same. The difference is how many people die before you accept the inevitable. Emperor Thaxlon looked around his throne room at his advisors and generals. Each face showed the same expression of defeat and despair. The empire they had served faithfully for their entire lives was crumbling around them. Your Majesty, General Mortak said quietly, our latest reports show that revolution has broken out on 17 core worlds. The species we conquered are rising up now that they see the hegemony can be defeated. Our own forces are deserting in massive numbers. The Emperor closed his eyes. In 3 days, his mighty empire had been reduced to a fraction of its former size. The humans had not just outfought them, they had outthought them, outplanned them, and completely outmaneuvered them at every turn. Admiral Chen, he said finally, what guarantee do I have that humanity will not become the next galactic oppressor? The human commander considered the question carefully. Because we've learned from history, Your Majesty. Every empire that has tried to rule the galaxy has eventually fallen. We have no interest in ruling others, only in ensuring that no one else can threaten our survival or the freedom of other species. You would let the liberated worlds govern themselves? That's exactly what we plan to do. The United Earth Federation has no desire to become a galactic empire. We've seen how that story ends. Instead, we're proposing a confederation of free worlds, working together for mutual defense and prosperity. The Emperor looked one last time at the tactical display. The blue markers now covered nearly half the galaxy, and they were still spreading. His advisors watched him silently, waiting for a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Very well, Emperor Thaxlon said, his voice heavy with the weight of centuries. The hegemony surrenders unconditionally. May history judge us more kindly than we deserve. Admiral Chan nodded solemnly. History will remember that you chose to end this war rather than let it continue. That takes a different kind of courage, Your Majesty. As the transmission ended and the throne room plunged into silence, the Emperor of the Hegemony sat heavily on his throne of crystallized starlight. Outside, across 1,000 worlds, the news of surrender spread like wildfire. Species that had been enslaved for centuries celebrated their freedom. Soldiers laid down their arms. And, slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to heal from 3 centuries of oppression. The last empire that had dared to challenge the galaxy had fallen, brought down by a species they thought they had destroyed. But, from its ashes, something new was being born, a galaxy where freedom mattered more than conquest, where cooperation replaced domination, and where the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Humanity had returned from the dead not as conquerors, but as liberators. And, for the first time in centuries, the galaxy was truly free.